here right now.
From coast to coast, from border to border, from sea to shining sea, Sean Hannity is on. From the Fox News headquarters in New York City, this is Hannity's America.
Let freedom ring. Let the world go.
And welcome to this brand new edition of Hannity's America, and we get right to our top story. It is a Hannity's America exclusive. It is the truth about Haditha. One of the Marines accused of murder at Haditha is telling his story for the first time, along with his father and his attorney. Corporal Sherritt was cleared of all charges and honorably discharged from the Marine Corps, but tonight, for the first time, he is telling us what really happened that day and responds to the horrific charges made against him by Congressman John Murtha. On December 21st, 2006, military prosecutors charged 4 Marines with murder in connection with the deaths of 24 Iraqis in the city of Haditha in November 2005. 4 other Marine officers were charged with dereliction of duty for not accurately reporting the grisly events that took place that day. Events that occurred just moments after a Marine motorcade was hit with a roadside bomb, killing 20-year-old Lance Corporal Miguel Terrosis, Staff Sergeant Frank Woodterich, Lance Corporal Stephen Tatum, and Justin Sherritt, and Sergeant Sainic de la Cruz were all initially charged with murder. The Marines insist they were just following their training. Military officials and congressmen like Pennsylvania's John Murtha have tried to paint the incident with a different brush, calling it a series of retribution killings.
There was no firefight. There was no IED that killed these innocent people.
With murder charges against Corporal Sherritt being dropped and a prosecutor's recommendation to try Sergeant Woodterich for a series of lesser charges, has politics gotten in the way of patriotism? Tonight, one of those Marines breaks his silence and tells us what really happened on that fateful day in Haditha, Iraq. Talk about November 19th, 2005. You are in Iraq. You're in a Humvee or with a caravan. You're with a bunch of other Marines. Tell us what happened that day.
On November 19th, it was just started off as any other convoy to our combat outpost. We had our firm base where we operated out of. Then we had a smaller firm base with about 1 platoon of Marines. And every day we would go out there with chow and water, and we would do radio code changes so that the enemy, if they ever got any of our radios, they wouldn't be able to listen in on us. Mm-hmm. So we went out to the combat outpost, and on the way back to the firm base, we got hit by an IED.
Mm-hmm. Where were you when this IED exploded?
I was in the first vehicle. It was a Humvee, and I was on the turret, which is the machine gun on top of the vehicle.
Okay. Describe the scene. For those that don't know, these IEDs are these roadside bombs. In the process, a fellow Marine was killed.
Yes.
Explain what that situation is like, exactly where you were when the bomb goes off, and what happens, what ensues immediately thereafter.
From when we went up that road, it just seemed like a normal morning, normal amount of traffic. Very little foot traffic because it was pretty early in the morning.
Right.
We got about halfway down the road before we were going to make our right turn, and I heard an explosion behind us. I immediately looked behind to see if all the other vehicles were still following. I remember seeing vehicle 2 and 3, and in the cloud of smoke, I couldn't see vehicle 4. So immediately I knew we were probably hit by the IED. I turned around, yelled down that we got hit by an IED. And then I manned my machine gun on top of that turret because I had to make sure nothing was going to continue to happen as a coordinated attack or possibly a vehicle-borne IED coming from us head-on.
But immediately thereafter, according to all the reports I read, is that you all came under small arms fire from a house that was nearby in the neighborhood, correct?
The back half of the convoy did.
Right, and you were aware that was happening?
Yes.
How soon thereafter did you know that one of your fellow Marines was killed by this IED?
It wasn't very long after the IED exploded that it was passed over the radio. that Lance Corporal Terrazas was killed.
How would that communication go out? What would they say?
We had actually what we call kill numbers. You're given one before you deploy, and you're supposed to wear it on your arm underneath your pocket. And basically, instead of saying names over the radio, they say that number, so if the enemy is listening, they don't hear names and things of that nature. But in our squad, everyone knew each other's kill numbers, and when that one was said, we knew exactly who it was.
Now, it's common practice that usually the enemy, after an IED explosion, it's very common that small arms fire follows. That, in other words, that they're surrounding the area, and then as the chaos ensues, which would be natural, they try and start picking off more soldiers with small arms fire, and that began to happen here, right?
Yes.
Okay. What kind of fire was incoming for you guys?
To me, it sounded like AK-47 fire right after the IED.
Right. And did you know the direction from which it was coming?
I had a pretty good idea, but like I said, I was at the front of the convoy, and I wasn't personally taking small arms fire. Mm-hmm. But just from behind me, it sounded like it was coming from our south.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so, explain the next step. What is the procedure? You know, what does your training tell you to do when the situation like this occurs? What are you supposed to do, and then what did you do?
What we're supposed to do is we're supposed to get out of the kill zone, basically the IED about 100 meters away from it, and then we're supposed to dismount off our vehicles, let enough people hold security on the vehicles, and then we're supposed to set up a cordon around the IED blast looking for the trigger man.
Yeah.
While we call our QRF, our quick reaction force, to come in and help assist with either the cordon or if we took casualties.
Okay, and that's what happened, because then immediately, as I understand it, there were two things that were sort of unfolding at the same time, at least according to published reports, but you were there, you would know better. And one was that there were a group of civilians, seemingly, and that they started running away from the Marines that were there. Explain what happened in that situation.
From what I remember was we were telling them to stop, and they kept running, and we didn't know what they were doing. We didn't know if they were running back to get guns or if they possibly were the trigger man.
Would that be normal reaction of somebody in that situation, that they'd run away from you guys?
I've been in multiple IEDs, and being in Iraq, 2 deployments, if you tell someone to stop, they're going to listen to you and they're going to stop.
So that was unusual.
Yes.
Any time did you see any of your fellow Marines do anything other than what they were trained to do, or how they were trained to respond to a situation like this?
No.
Everybody acted according to procedure, 100%.
They were all Marines.
They were all Marines. And more of my exclusive interview with Justin Sharon and his father right after the break, and we're going to find out what they think about their own government accusing Justin of war crimes. That's straight ahead. Don't go away. And welcome back to Hannity's America. We continue now with my exclusive interview with Justin Sharon, his father, and attorney. In this next part, Justin tells me just what it was like going through this entire ordeal. A number of civilians died in this incident. I think it was, what, 24?
19 civilians.
19 to 20. There's different reports. Some that said 19, some that said 24.
We believe the people that Justin shot weren't civilians.
Oh, okay. But if you believe they were part of the...
We believe they were insurgents.
You believe they were insurgents. All right, so in total there were 24 people that died?
Yes.
Okay. And so and when this is all finished, what happens? I guess a response team comes in afterwards and starts investigating the incident?
Yes.
And how soon thereafter? Is it right that day?
It is that day, but it was later on that day.
Okay. And do you start getting questioned by superiors? What happened, etc.?
Briefly, yes.
Okay. Where I want to go then from here, when did you first find out that you were being suspected of, that you might be suspected of breaking procedure and killing innocent civilians?
It was a couple months after the incident, actually.
Tell us about that day.
I vaguely remember that day because for that deployment, it was a really hectic deployment for us. We'd go on a patrol, we'd come back for 2 hours, go out on another patrol, and you either were awake patrolling or you were sleeping. And I just remember I want to say we were out at the smoke pit. They called our squad out, and They told us that